We must stop foreign ownership of housing indefinitely, give foreign owners 2 years to sell up so we don't suddenly flood the market. If not sold, the property will be repossessed by the federal government. We must put Australia and Australians first.
Grab your cuppa, lean back in your chair and brace yourself, mate, because what you're about to hear is the kind of political circus that makes a kangaroo on a trampoline look calm. Before we show you the footage, mate, I've got to ask a tiny favour. If you're enjoying this content, take a quick second to chuck a like on the video and hit that subscribe button. More than 98% of you legends watch without subscribing. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it makes a massive difference to us. So go on. Did you tap that subscribe button? Pew! Thanks heaps. Now let's get back into the video.
Foreigners own barely 1% of private residential property in Australia. The implication is that it's not a problem, but in real numbers, it's estimated more than 108,000 dwellings in Australia that Australians don't own. The rules governing foreign investment seem to be selectively enforced, that is, if they're ever enforced. Total residential property transactions by foreign investors rose 27% from July 2022 to June 2023. Since the pandemic, they've been coming back in droves. In fact, there were 5,360 purchases to the value of $4.9 billion. For decades, we've been told foreign investment was limited to new dwellings to encourage more housing supply. I've recently learned that foreigners can purchase established housing up to a value of $750,000, but subject to the following. Foreign students can buy established homes provided they sell them when they leave, and foreigners can buy established homes provided they redevelop them within 4 years. It's these rules which aren't being enforced. It's no wonder that in the year to June 2023, 34% of foreign purchases were for established dwellings and another 16% were for vacant land. Every purchase represents a home or piece of land denied ownership by an Australian. For years, it's been One Nation policy to permanently ban foreign ownership of residential property. We're gratified the Coalition has adopted another of my policies, although it's for a temporary ban that does not go far enough.
Yo, picture this, the Senate chamber glowing like a toaster about to explode. Pauline Hanson standing there like she's ready to referee the heavyweight championship of what on earth is going on with our houses. And meanwhile, Anthony Albanese is nowhere in sight. Because, of course, he's not. He only pops up in the lower house like a rare Pokemon sighting during question time. And today's episode, oh, buckle up, because it's the story of how Aussie homes became the hottest global souvenir since koala plushies at the airport gift shop. And honestly, the way this whole thing shakes out, you'd swear Albo misplaced a rule book somewhere between a press conference and a free sausage sizzle. Now, before we dive into the Senate showdown of the century, let me just welcome every legend tuning in today. If you've ever tried to buy a house in Australia and wondered why the prices are moving faster than a magpie in swooping season, this one's for you. Because down here in this dazzling theatre of politics, we've got foreign investors, billion-dollar figures, fancy terms like established dwellings, and a set of rules that feels like it was scribbled on the back of a pub coaster after closing time. And while Pauline Hanson is gearing up with her stack of statistics like she's about to expose a plot twist in a true crime documentary, one thing becomes clear. Someone's got to explain how all this fits together. And today, that someone might as well be us. So here we go. Our story kicks off with Pauline standing tall, reminding everyone listening that we're often told foreign owners barely control 1% of private residential property in Australia. A tiny little sliver. A percentage so small it feels like someone's trying to pat us on the head while saying, "Relax, mate, nothing to see here." But then she slaps down the real numbers like a deck of cards. More than 108,000 dwellings. Yep, you heard right. Places Aussies don't own. Homes, units, houses, potential dream kitchens where we could have burnt our first lasagna. All in the hands of people who don't even live here. And straight away, you can feel the tension in the room go up a notch because that little 1% suddenly feels a whole lot bigger when it's translated into actual homes. And Pauline doesn't stop there. No way. She keeps moving like a lotto announcer, reading out the winning numbers, except the prize here is mild panic. The rules governing foreign investment selectively enforced, if they're enforced at all. Which is honestly the political equivalent of saying, yeah, we've got a speed limit, but who's really checking? And just when everyone's about to take a sip of water to calm down, she drops another figure. A whopping 27% rise in residential property transactions by foreign investors between July 2022 and June 2023. 27%. Even the inflation rate is probably looking at that number going, mate, calm down. And then she goes further. Since the pandemic, she says they've been coming back in droves. No dramatic pause needed. Just pure, unfiltered reality delivered in the most Senate-like way imaginable. Over 5,360 purchases totaling $4.9 billion. That's not pocket change. That's not someone putting a house on lay-by. That's a full-blown property shopping spree that makes Boxing Day sales look civilised. Now imagine Albanese watching this from somewhere, maybe biting into a sandwich or nodding thoughtfully at a staffer, pretending everything's fine. Because right now, Pauline is laying down stats that could make even the calmest politician start writing talking points in their sleep. For decades, and this is where things get spicy, Australians were told foreign investment was mostly restricted to new dwellings, new builds, fresh concrete. Basically encouraging the idea that, hey, if they want to build new stuff, let them. More houses for everyone. But then she unveils a detail that hits the chamber like a dropped toolbox. Foreigners can purchase established housing up to a value of $750,000. And suddenly everyone's eyebrows go up. Established homes? That's not building more housing. That's diving straight into the existing supply like it's a swimming pool on a hot Christmas afternoon. And wait for it because there's a cherry on top. Foreign students, yes, students, can buy established homes as long as they sell them when they leave the country. Which sounds perfectly fine on paper, until you consider that enforcing this rule might involve someone keeping tabs on tens of thousands of people like they're checking library books on return day. Then we've got foreigners being allowed to buy established homes if they redevelop them within 4 years. Also fine, in theory. But again, we enter this mysterious realm of rules that sound official but never quite get checked. It's like writing a strict diet plan and then leaving the fridge unlocked 24/7. Pauline then points out that these rules, shockingly or not, aren't being enforced. And now the puzzle pieces click together like a jigsaw from Kmart. No wonder, she says, that in the year leading up to June 2023, about 34% of foreign purchases were for established dwellings, that is, 1 in 3. Then another 16% were for vacant land. So that's half the foreign transactions going straight into spaces Aussies might have wanted to call home someday. And every purchase, she says, represents a home or piece of land denied ownership by an Australian. It's a dramatic line delivered like a Matt Preston critique on MasterChef, but it lands. You can hear it. Yeah. You can feel the implication in the air. And at this point in our little parody drama, let's pause to imagine Albanese again. Maybe flipping through briefing notes, maybe squinting thoughtfully, maybe thinking about promising to form another committee to study the last committee that studied the first committee. Because this entire speech is happening in the Senate while he's down the hall, blissfully unaware that his housing policies are being grilled like a backyard sausage. This isn't an attack on him as a person. No insults, no nastiness, just a gentle parody, imagining him muttering, "Crikey, not again," somewhere in Parliament House as the stats keep flying like boomerangs. Then Pauline brings it back to long-standing One Nation policy, the permanent ban on foreign ownership of residential property. And before anything gets heated, she clarifies her stance. And in our parody world, Albanese is probably whispering to someone, yeah, but temporary bans are more my vibe. Turns out the coalition has jumped on board, but only for a temporary ban. temporary, just for now, like putting a piece of tape over a cracked window and hoping for the best. Pauline insists it doesn't go far enough, arguing for a permanent, indefinite halt. Full stop. No more. Zip. Nada. Her next move, a proposal that foreign owners should get 2 years to sell up, preventing a sudden flood onto the market, seems orderly enough. And if the properties aren't sold, she says the government should repossess them. A bold idea, a dramatic idea, the kind of idea that in this over-the-top parody probably makes Albanese drop his coffee cup in slow motion somewhere else in the building. Meanwhile, Pauline punctuates the whole thing with a call to put Australia and Australians first, a sentiment delivered with the subtlety of a marching band. Now, as we weave this transcript into our YouTube-sized epic, let's bring the viewers deeper into the emotional roller coaster. Imagine being an Aussie trying to break into the housing market, seeing auctions where prices go up faster than you can shout, fair go. Imagine reading listings where a one-bedroom apartment the size of a broom closet is going for nearly $1 million and thinking, did I miss something? Is there gold buried under the carpet? And then imagine hearing stories about rules and regulations supposedly keeping the market fair, only to discover they might have more loopholes than a fishing net. This is where the parody lifts off, leaning into the drama without diving into harm or hate. Because while we're giving Albanese a good ribbing here, it's all in good fun. No personal attacks, just poking at the political comedy of it all. There's something inherently funny about the idea of a leader being constantly caught between press conferences, housing policies, and the Senate firing off statistics like confetti cannons. He's a busy bloke, he's juggling things, and sometimes in the world of parody, the juggling act gets a little wobbly and we get to laugh gently at the situation, not the man. We carry on by diving back into Pauline's fiery delivery. She's not just listing numbers, she's painting a picture. A map of how housing supply, demand, and foreign investment have mixed into the biggest BBQ debate since someone brought vegan sausages. You've got markets heating up, foreign buyers snapping up properties, and Aussies feeling like they're trying to win a game of Monopoly where someone else started with 5 hotels on every square. And it's not about demonising anyone. Foreign buyers aren't villains here. It's about highlighting how policies, loopholes and lack of enforcement lead to real frustration on the ground. As the minutes tick by in this imaginary Senate session, you can feel the narrative tightening. Pauline's rhythm intensifies. Every line feels like another push in a tug of war for public opinion. Meanwhile, Albanese, in our playful parody, might be somewhere practicing his next "we're taking meaningful action" speech and blissfully unaware that someone upstairs is staging the political equivalent of a tactical airstrike using spreadsheets. And that brings us to the heart of this script, the need for clarity, accountability and a proper conversation about the housing market. Pauline's speech, whether you agree with her solutions or not, shines a bright spotlight on questions everyday Australians are asking. Why is housing so expensive? Why does it feel like every time you blink, prices jump again? Why do rules exist on paper but vanish in practice? And who's actually making sure everything is above board? The comedy here isn't in the seriousness of the issue. Housing is a real important topic, but in the political theatre that surrounds it, in the way numbers get tossed around like footy scores, in the way policies get promised, paused, reviewed, reconsidered, reviewed again, sent to committee, parked, revisited, resold, and then explained in front of microphones with 3 different interpretations depending on which minister you ask. And in our playful, affectionate parody, Albanese becomes the symbol of that dance, not the villain, not the target of hate, just the bemused conductor of a very chaotic orchestra. As we reach the final arc of this long, wild ride, the message becomes clear. Australians want answers. They want fairness. They want housing they can actually afford without having to sell a kidney, a lung, and half their furniture. And as Pauline's speech rings through the chamber, ending with that declaration of putting Australia and Australians first, you can practically hear the debates of tomorrow warming up already. More speeches, more statistics, more questions, and more moments where political leaders including Albanese, will be invited back into the hot seat to explain exactly how their policies will ensure everyday Aussies get a fair crack. And as we wrap up this parody tale, let's bring it home with a wink. Because somewhere in Parliament House, perhaps down the hallway, perhaps stepping into a lift, perhaps sipping a quiet coffee, Albanese might still be blissfully unaware that his housing policies are being roasted like a Sunday chook in the chamber upstairs. And when he finally hears about it, well, maybe he'll adjust his glasses, give a thoughtful nod and say something classically prime ministerial like, "We're reviewing the situation carefully." And the political world will keep spinning, the debates will keep raging, and Australians will keep hoping for solutions that genuinely make their lives better. And that's the beauty of political parody. It lets us explore the drama, the humour, and the chaos without crossing the line. No hate, no harm, just an honest look at the strange, sometimes hilarious world of housing policy and parliamentary showdowns. Thanks for staying with this wild ride, legend. Let's keep digging into the stories that matter with a bit of Aussie humour and a whole lot of curiosity.